This podcast is an initiative of the Australian Intercollegiate Meat Judging Association to showcase the career paths within the meat processing industry. ICMJ is a not-for-profit association which aims to provide opportunities for students to learn, building the pool of intelligent young meat industry representatives into the future. ICMJ does this through a series of events across Australia and overseas. For more information, head to the website icmj.com.au. So far, the podcast has focused mainly on meat science. However, there's a huge breadth of careers in meat processing outside that sphere. Today, we hear from someone who works on the consumer end of the supply chain, helping chefs and home cooks get the best out of their red meat. MLA corporate chef Sam Burke's career began in fast food, and it's come full circle in an amazing way. I'm Amy McCosker, and I started my conversation with Sam by asking where he came from.
Mum and dad come from totally different parts of Australia. So mum grew up in Claremont in Queensland and then moved all the way around Queensland all her life. My grandparents were in ag, and after my grandfather came back from World War II, he invested in both cattle and sheep grazing across the country. So it's a big loop. It comes back into, and my mum often says how proud my grandparents would be if they knew what position I was in today. So it's something that I kind of remember and think of when I do my job. Yeah, and dad, on the other hand, was a single child, raised in the inner western suburbs of Sydney in a suburb called Ashfield, which I grew up to. So mum, at a young age, decided enough of the country life, and she wanted to get to the big smoke and live near the beach and then work near the beach. And she came down and moved to Bondi with her sister, and then met my dad, and then away we come. I got two sisters and myself, 3 children all up, and one's a school teacher, the other's does very very well in a logistics company, and myself, I'm of the culinary mindset, if you like.
So that rural background and agricultural background, it's sort of baked into you back in your history, but not something that I suppose was a part of your life in those early days personally?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yes and no, right? Because when I was young, actually, I worked in a butcher shop for 7 years, and we'll get a bit more onto that later. But I fell in love with the end product when it came from the wholesaler to the retailer. In 7 years worked on the other end of the supply chain to really gain respect for what the farmers do with that wonderful beef, veal, lamb, and goat that ends up in the butcher shop window. So in a roundabout ways, I had something to do with ag on the other end of the spectrum, if you like. And I knew I was going to either be one or two things. I loved cars and I loved food. So it was either going to be a chef or a mechanic. And I did work experience whilst at school at both. And it ended up being a chef, if you like.
So how did that journey start when you first finished school? You had those two choices, chef or mechanic. You decided to go down the food route. Where did that journey start?
Yeah, so believe it or not, I started working when I was 12 years old, and I always was a believer of if I wanted that BMX bike, or if I wanted that new pair of shoes or that awesome pair of board shorts back in the day, I had to work for it. It wasn't given to me on a silver spoon. So I started off very early on a milk run for 5 years and delivering milk 4 days a week after school from 4 till 9 p.m. And then that led into a role at McDonald's, where my love for Australian beef first came. So that was the first time I cooked Aussie beef professionally, if you like, in a restaurant environment. Big Macs, quarter pounders, junior burgers and cheeseburgers over the grill in Concord after school on Monday, Thursday and Saturday mornings. So it was fantastic grounding to my working life and gave me the passion to take it one step further into the chefing world. So like I mentioned before, I did some work experience at school at the Menzies, which was a 5-star hotel back then in the Hyde Park Plaza. And then I finished school, and then I wasn't probably academically the best I could probably be, but I knew how to work, and I knew how to work hard, and I was very loyal to my employer, with that grounding I got. So on from McDonald's, I went to Franklin's, which was a supermarket that was quite big back in the 80s and 90s, and they started their first fresh food market, if you like, and they had a big butcher shop there in Leichhardt in Marion Street, in Sydney, in the city of Sydney, and started working in the butcher shop there, and had all this food experience from McDonald's, my milk run, and the butcher shop. So I had that love for food. So we were in the recession we had to have in 1992, and there was 8 roles and about 90 applicants for an apprentice chef with the Spotless Group, who was a massive caterer, still is today. And at the time, they did everything like the Taronga Zoo, the Sydney Football Stadium, the SCG. And I applied for that role. And I think the experience I received from working at McDonald's and giving me a good grounding there in systems, which were fantastic there, right up to working in the butcher shop, learning all about meat there firsthand, and dealing with customers and dealing with situations that arise from time to time. If customers aren't happy, how to deal with that, and right back to the milk run. Just that love for working hard gave me the opportunity. I was one of those 8 people that received that golden ticket to an apprenticeship back then, which was I knew how hard that it was to get a job, so I respected it and thought it's this or nothing. So threw everything behind it.
And when you stepped into that role at Spotless, and I know it became quite a important place in your career, you worked there for a long time. Did you know at the beginning how important it would be to your career, that job?
Yeah, well, the thing I enjoyed about doing my apprenticeship at Spotless, it was such a diverse company, and still is today. Like I started off cooking, first of all, at Caltex Oil Refinery out at Kurnell for big refiners. So I learned how to do bulk cooking, big casseroles, big stews, curries, roasts, braises, sandwiches for big numbers. And then 6 months later, I went to Commonwealth Bank in Martin Place. So we learned how to do fine dining there for the restaurant. And then on to the football stadium where we did corporate suites. And then you had that taste of everything every 6 months. We were on rotation. So it gave you really the in-depth of experience on how commercial catering and chefs work across many different aspects, from a la carte to big dining to corporate dining to mass numbers to catering for schools. It kind of gave us a taste for everything, and built our strengths up so we could pretty much take on anything in hospitality. So that was why I enjoyed that job so much and stayed there for so long. It was always new, and the people were great, and the opportunities that were given to me were amazing.
And you were
Yeah.
with Spotless for many years, weren't you?
Yeah, 20 years in total. So like I said, I finished my apprenticeship in 1997. I started in 1994, and whilst I was at Spotless, I was also doing the butcher's job on the weekend and then at nights at Franklin's Big Fresh. So I stayed there for 7 years too. So I kind of looked at it because my apprenticeship, I got a massive $139 a week. So I looked at it, how do I keep going, and make this appealing to me and survive, because it was tough, right? So mum and dad helped me out and gave me a roof over my head. But, but having that hard work ethic in me, I worked as these side jobs on the night. So, I do the butcher, I do chefing somewhere else at night, I do my apprenticeship. I worked as a security guard for a while. I worked as a cleaner in the school, and just that ethic for hard work. And I looked at my apprenticeship as, hey, if you go to uni and get a degree, you're going to get a ticket that's going to get you a place if you work hard in a respectable job. For me, I was getting paid, although it was only $139, to get that ticket to have a respectable job. So that's what kept me driving. Not so much the income at the time, but the opportunity to get that certificate, that commercial cookery certificate of proficiency, that gave me a ticket to work anywhere in the world. And that's what kept me going. And the extra money I earned from those hustling side jobs, which kept me going through my apprenticeship, and which is what I recommend to young people today. Don't think of the money straight off. Think of the experience, do your learning, respect, network, and that'll come.
And so how did all of this work and this sort of hard graft in your life, how did all of this lead to MLA? What was the link, I suppose, between the work for Spotless and then coming over to Meat and Livestock Australia?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. So with Spotless, I started off as, I did my apprenticeship, and then I developed through the systems, and I became a chef, and then a sous chef, which is like a second chef, and then an executive chef. And then I went into operations. So we were given a company car, and I thought I'd make it then. I was 25. I got my first corporate, my company car, and off I was looking after a portfolio of sites. Like we had at the time 8 to 12 sites that we used to look after, and there were 8 to 12 kind of cafes, canteens, corporate sites, commercial catering. So we learned how to be business unit operators, how to do the P&L, how to meet cost of goods, how to do menu development, how to retain clients, how to deal with staff. So that gave me a real taste of running business. And then in 2006, I had my second child, and that was the time for me to go back and learn more if I wanted to develop more. So Spotless sent me to UTS to do a business diploma. So I did a diploma in business at the University of Technology in Sydney, and that gave me more business experience, and then leaded me up into a food development role, which I was, there's me and a colleague, Glenn Flood, at the end. We were responsible for steering the culinary direction of over 185 sites across Australia for food service. So 20 years, I was 39, and I said, well, I can stay here. I'm comfortable. I've made a good living, but I've done nothing since I've left school, but be loyal to my employer. And I loved the company I was working for, but I said it's now or never. And this role came up at MLA, and they needed someone as a product development chef. And I thought, this is an opportunity to get these skills on the other side and work for the industry that I had loved, since a kid, working in a butcher shop all those years, and help people like Spotless, where I was, have success of Australian red meat on menu and keep it on. And because I'd been for 20 years in the operational aspect of the business, so I pretty much knew what there was to know. Well, you're always learning. You never know everything, but I pretty much had a good grasp on the industry, if you like. That's the best way of putting it. And I thought I could flip that over and work for the producer and help people that were in my position have success with Aussie red meat on menu. And we groomed these networks, because we'd always go to industry events, and you'd see the head chef of a big hotel chain, or a quick service restaurant chain, or an airline, because we're all figureheads of industry. And I got to know all these chefs in these different departments of industry when I was at Spotless. So when I joined MLA, I said, look, I can cook the occasional board dinner, or do a promotion, or be an ambassador, but how do I give more to the producer and Meat and Livestock Australia? So I started tapping on all these networks I've made over the years, these executive chefs and these food development managers and these F&B managers and procurement managers. And I said to them, what are your challenges of Australian red meat on menu? How can we take that stress away from you and help you have success with the product, so you can grow demand of it on your business, and your customers can come in and have an excellent experience. You're using the right cut for the right product. You're using the most economical cut that'll keep red meat on menu above, and I unashamedly say it, above chicken, pork, or vegetables. That's my role, right? So how do I market that and immerse myself in the business, and then come back and give those chefs the tools to make it work, and then keep it coming back time and time again on menu?
And what have you found is the best way to do that? I know that traditionally your job would entail a lot of travel. Obviously, in 2020, that has been off the table. So, how have you been able to meet those goals that you've got and be engaging with consumers and providers of service in a time when face to face meetings just aren't happening? And I would imagine that the best way to convert people to eating Australian red meat is to feed them Australian red meat. So if they're not coming to events and that sort of thing, how are you engaging with them?
So that's a good question. So I guess the best way to answer that is to give you a bit of what we did prior and how we've pivoted in 2020. So prior, what we'd do is we'd go out and we'd talk to these contacts I was telling you about, and then we'd listen to their problems, and then we'd go into their kitchens and do kind of, if you like, not so much an audit, but just an overview of their operations, and then learn their challenges. For example, did you know when red meat goes up in a plane at 30,000 feet, we lose our taste receptors in our mouths when we're consuming a red meat meal? So you've got to add more sodium into that dish so the consumer can taste it when they're having that beautiful beef massaman curry on a Qantas flight at 30,000 feet. Those kind of things, or what kind of ovens they use, what kind of methods of cookery they use, what's their cost of goods, what cuts do they use, and then work backwards to engineer a dish that works in their business. So how do we do that when COVID happens and I can't go out and visit those wonderful partners that we've been working with over the years? So I guess we've had to think about, number one, biggest impact. We've had to think about their challenges. So food service, let's be honest, in 2020 came to a total stop. Planes finished, cruise boats where we worked with were docked. They're still sitting in Singapore as we speak. Restaurants across the whole of Horeca and food service and hotels had to close down during lockdown periods. So the whole industry came to a stop. So it was really devastating for me because I came from that side of the business, and just to see it all stop was something that hurt and still is hurting me, as I talk now. So I decided, first thing, let's get out and let's do a masterclass in my backyard during lockdown on red meat success with summer over flames. So the next week, I rang up my boss and I said, I've got this ambitious idea. I want to drop a cool room in my driveway, and I want to set up my backyard. You see, I'm a bit of a collector of. I have a real passion with barbecuing on the weekend, so I've got 15 different barbecues, and I said, let's do a red meat 101 over flames with Australian beef, lamb, and goat on menu. So we've got a film crew in the back, and my beautiful wife and my kids for one whole week who were on lockdown. The kids were doing homeschooling. We got all the council approvals done. We got the COVID workplace safety done, and we filmed 10 episodes from everything from goat paellas to lamb butterfly legs over flames to slow and low beef short ribs to lamb pizzas in the wood-fired oven to lamb arrosticini skewers over Italian Ferraboli barbecues. Help food service have success when they come back from that time of COVID. And we turned that around to a real wonderful team. Julie, who's our product development chef who works with me at MLA, and a great crew, a film crew, and a wonderful team in our comms team. We turned that project around in 10 days, from filming to out there teaching chefs how to have success with Australian red meat with the upcoming spring and summer period, which we're in now, right? So those tools that we developed during COVID are ready to go to help them bounce back in their business, and they've been adopted across the country.
Now, there's no denying that the understanding of consumers and their meat has come a long way, and I suppose that's why you've got to keep ahead of these things, because people do expect a certain level, don't they, when it comes to meat and dining these days. What do you think is next for consumers? You know, we've gotten to a point where it seems like literacy is pretty high, like the average consumer. It seems like people really are starting to understand their cuts and starting to understand how to cook things, and, you know, gone are the days of dad sort of overcooking steaks on the barbecue and that sort of thing. What do you think is the next frontier for home cooks?
Yeah, great question. And that's what COVID's done, Amy. It's brought a lot of people back to the kitchens because they couldn't travel, they were in lockdown. So, for example, I'd get on social media and I'd see a million people doing sourdough starters and sourdough bread, and slow cooking, those secondary cuts, the occasional adventure barbecue, taking the barbecue to the next level. So the wonderful thing about Australia is that we're such a young country, right? Like I guess we got those beautiful Indigenous people that have been here for thousands of years, who now we're actually using a lot of those ingredients in modern day food service menus, like beautiful saltbush leaves and lemon myrtle and all those wonderful Australian native herbs that came from that Indigenous communities, and look at Sydney, for example, or go to Brisbane, or go to Melbourne, or Adelaide, or even Perth. You've got Italians, you've got Philippine, you've got Chinese, Vietnamese, Europeans, Middle Eastern. I could go on and on. And we've had that melting pot of cultures that have all come together and have all brought their dishes with them, right? So let's just rewind to 1990, for example. If you looked at bread, for example, gourmet bread would have been multi-grain tip top loaf. Now you go in, you see all these beautiful sourdough and these Turkish breads and this Afghan bread, and and that's the same with red meat dishes, right? If I go back to when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, you'd have that roast leg of lamb on a Sunday. You'd have midline chops on a Tuesday. You'd have the sirloin steak on the Wednesday. Grandma always made a ripping corned beef with white sauce. You'd have that loaf of bread in the middle. Your free veg, your broccoli, your carrots, and your potatoes, and then maybe a bit of ice cream or apple pie for dessert. Now, the consumer has less time because they're taking the kids out to sport. They want to go for a run. So it's all about those 15-minute meals that are high in nutrients, those one-pot wonders, those stir fries, those wonderful wet dishes, those things you can put in a slow cooker, go to work and come back and have a gelatinous lamb shoulder at night where you just have to add the vegetables. The barbecuing, if you have a look at the barbecuing, people are going back to coal, slow cooking briskets, shoulders, short ribs, different steak cuts, tomahawks, which we all know is a Scotch fillet with the rib bone on it. We've been so lucky with all these cultures coming that it's really taken our food to the next level, and we're seeing the average Aussie consumer have a go at this, and you feel good about something if you do it well. And we're finding that if we teach people to do it well, there's a good chance that it's going to be in their shopping trolleys the next week. And that's what it's all about. We want nutritional, balanced meals that people feel good about eating.
Now, your career's taken you to some amazing places. You've cooked all over the world for lots of, interesting and amazing people. And I know you've also cooked in lots of paddocks and backyards with producers and everyday people as well. And I believe I've heard that your story actually came full circle and you were able to do some work again with your first employer, McDonald's.
Yeah.
Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, no problem. So, like I said, it started off in Concord on Parramatta Road in Sydney, working at McDonald's, learning the systems there. And then it came full loop, I think, in 2016 when I went to Japan, and we were with our then, who now is our international GM of international markets, Andrew Cox. He looked after the Japanese market at the time, and we did some burger innovation there for McDonald's Japan, and that's also led to some collaborations that we've done here in Australia, looking at hot in the hand sandwiches where Aussie beef plays its rightful place, and that's starring on McDonald's menu. So it's a real tribute, I guess, from starting off in 1991 at 16 years old to coming back at 43. I was at that time, working well, sorry, 41 I was in 2016, losing the plot there, working that full circle, from following procedures to having an impact on menu. And that for me was a real proud moment in MLA, representing, servicing those producers, and making sure that their product hits the menu on Australia's and the world's biggest food service company, which is, McDonald's. So it was a real honor, if you like, for me. And I talk to McDonald's all the time, and they're great supporters of not only menu innovation, but nurturing young people and teaching them and grounding them into leaders of today. So I've got 3 daughters, and if one of them come to me and said, "Hey, Dad, I want to work in McDonald's," I'd happily drive them down there and fill out the application form with them, because it was just a great grounding place to start my career in.
Amazing. And I think that if anyone who works at McDonald's is listening today, or anyone with any job that they're starting out and they're trying to figure out where they're going in life, your career is just such a great example of what you can create with sort of hard work and passion and just taking whatever opportunity you've got and doing your best.
100%, Amy. I think it's about, just if you say you're going to do something, do it to the best of your ability, respect your peers, and work hard and network, and never stop learning. If you never stop learning, you're always aim to learn more, because that'll set you up for life. Those skills, I think that's what's definitely helped me, and I encourage anyone, don't give up, follow your dreams, work hard. And ag is a tremendous industry for you to get in, because my biggest reward, Amy, is, and I've said this, I think I said it to you when we first met, is at the end of the year, which is something I'm very sad that we haven't been able to do this year, is go to our annual general meeting where we have red meat, which is a big it's a big expo, if you like, on how MLA demonstrates to levy payers on what we've done with those levies, and how we've achieved the goals to take the red meat industry forward, right? So when I attend those sessions, I love talking to the producer and listening to what they're doing and learning about what they're doing, because I take those stories to the big end users like the McDonald's and bring the chain together. You know what I mean? And people say, you never look nervous, Sam. You're always full of confidence and passion. And yeah, that's true, right? I am passionate, but I do get very nervous, and I get more nervous in front of producers than I do actually cooking in front of 15 senior executive chefs. And that's because I believe I've got a responsibility as an ambassador for their product to be the very best I can be. And I want to portray that in front of them whenever I get the opportunity. So, that's a bit about me and my passion for this industry.
This podcast is an initiative of the Australian Intercollegiate Meat Judging Association to showcase the career paths within the meat processing industry. ICMJ is a not-for-profit association which aims to provide opportunities for students to learn, building the pool of intelligent young meat industry representatives into the future. ICMJ does this through a series of events across Australia and overseas. For more information, head to the website icmj.com.au.